Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Yellow Gloves podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Cage Warriors. My name's Chris, and today we're going to be looking back at Cage Warriors 177 and Cage Warriors 178, which took place over Friday and Saturday in Manchester at the BEC Arena. 20 fights, 16 finishes, plenty to talk about. A lot of fights that fell through, title fights that fell through, but the cards still stayed together and they delivered big time. Mega prospects getting wins, big underdog upsets as well. These cards had literally everything that you would hope for as an MMA fan. So, with 20 fights in mind, we've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible, but let's get into it. We'll start. We'll start by discussing Cage Warriors 178, and I think towards the end, I'll chat about the unplugged stuff. So Cage Warriors 177. I think that's probably the best way to go about it, just because it makes more sense in my brain than bouncing from one card to the other. So Cage Warriors 178 main event: Luke Riley versus Alexandre Jr. Alexandre Jr. Coming off a loss in LFA back in March this year, making his Cage Warriors debut, 6-2. Luke Riley, obviously needing no introduction, was supposed to be on Dana White's Contender Series, failed to obtain his visa in time. 9-0 coming into this, just one of the best fighters in Europe. Forget the UK, forget anything. Like, one of the best fighters in Europe without a doubt. Should have been in the UFC already. Should not have to go through the Contender Series, in my opinion, and certainly not now that he's improved to 10-0 with another devastating knockout finish. That's 10 wins for Luke Riley, 0 losses, 7 finishes for Luke, a bunch of first round finishes, second round finishes, third round finishes, fight of the year contenders, 2 of them, by the way, 2 fight of the year contenders. One of the, well, not one of the single greatest fight in Cage Warriors history, Alexander Luth versus Luke Riley. Of course, Luke won half of that fight. We've seen Luke dropped, we've seen him recover, we've seen him dropped again, we've seen him recover again. He is just an exceptional talent with an exceptional mindset as well. You see a lot of these guys who come in at 5-0, 6-0, start to assemble these records, then their chin gets cracked and they get dropped in a fight and perhaps they lose and they come back and it's hard for them to get back on the horse, or it's hard for them to continue fighting in the style that they're fighting because they lose confidence or they're afraid that they might lose again. Luke Riley's got the most perfect mindset for an MMA fighter. He's a grinder. He's got exceptional durability, and on top of that, he's a ridiculous pressure fighter, amazing counter puncher, body snatcher, everything. I could talk about Luke Riley all day long. One thing I loved about this, I've been covering Luke's career for ages now, and obviously on the pod we've been doing this for 2 years. One of the first things I said about Luke Riley was, I love this guy. I think he's amazing. I'd love to see him kick more. And over the last year or so, we've started to see Luke Riley really start to add the calf kick to his arsenal, really. And I think this fight was a great example of that. Short as it was, lasted about a couple of minutes before Luke Riley put Alexandre Jr. out to pasture. But what I loved was seeing Luke Riley attack the calf early, like really going for it. The first action he had in the entire smashing into Junior's calf and then smashing into it again, and they were like these snapping, lovely low kicks. And yeah, Alexandre Jr. came to this fight a bit weird, like very much frozen on the spot. Seemed like he wanted to counter strike with Luke, and Luke didn't really. I think Luke spotted it naturally, as the great fighter that he is. I think Luke spotted that Junior wanted to just sit there, shell up, and try and get him on the counter. So Luke wasn't. In fact, this is probably the least we've seen Luke strike in combination. Like, he was jabbing, he was throwing singular shots to open Junior up, but not overexpose himself to getting hit on the counter. And when Junior clearly ran out of patience, Junior throws a naked leg kick. And what happens when you do that? You get your shit cleaned out. And Luke Riley crushing right hook as Junior lifted his leg up, put him out to pasture. It was one of those where he drops and he's clearly out, like he's been put out to sleep. And as his head hits the canvas, he just wakes right back up. So, Junior was kind of like protesting, but the way he fell, the way he dropped, the follow-up shots from Luke Riley. I mean, Luke could have just continued hitting him. I think it was a great stoppage. 10-0 now for Luke Riley. I said this last night, but he shouldn't be here. Like Luke shouldn't be in Cage Warriors anymore. He is because of the visa stuff, and it's a shame. But fuck the Dana White's Contender Series, fuck Tough, all of that shit. There's a Paris card on the 28th in a week. If any, if any 145er, even at 155, I could see Luke stepping in on short notice at 155. Any 45ers or 55ers drop out of that card. Luke Riley, get that man in the UFC because it just seems ridiculous at this point that he isn't one of the best fighters in Europe, certainly one of the best fighters in the country. And I could count on one hand the fighters that excite me most um, in MMA right now, and Luke Riley's one of them, right? Like if I had to name you my five fighters I most enjoy watching, that I get up in the morning on that night of the fight and I'm like, yes, this person's fighting tonight. Not just Cage Warriors, any promotion. Luke Riley's in that five. So yeah, can't wait to see what Luke does next. Alexander Jr., I'm sure we'll see him again. He's actually pretty decent, but Luke Riley just made him look like he wasn't. So yeah, props to Luke, and hopefully the next time we see him, he's wearing the that crappy Venom gear and plaster the UFC logo all over him because he deserves it. So let's move on. Co-main event, we had Ryan Davies versus Amari Jr. Davies, man, you lot must be bored, right? I've always said, the Davies hype train is, we're about to depart and there are no seats left on the train. Um, and yeah, I mean that sentiment continues, right? Like just to give a brief overview, Davies, this is second outing of the year, had a huge win over Adam Shelley earlier in the year, fighting Amori Jr., who, all right, 16-11, not the greatest record, but the most experienced opponent Davies has fought, 27 fights on Amori Jr.'s record. Coming off, by the way, one of the biggest underdog wins of the year in Cage Warriors, and probably would have been the biggest underdog win of the year if we didn't see what happened on Friday between Riri Hudson and Ellie Smith. But we'll talk about that later. Yeah, Maury Jr. back in March defeated Giuseppe Ruggieri, who was 8-0. Um, handily defeated him. So comes into this fight as a bit of a reputation for being able to scalp these big prospects. And yeah, Davies did not give a shit about that. Knees Amori Jr. to the body, literally his first action of the fight, gets him back up against the fence, body lock takedown. Jr. builds up to his feet. Davies picks his leg, puts him back on the ground, hops on his back, full body triangle, backpack, rear naked choke. Junior, fighting it as well as he could, peeling off the hands, but eventually Davies goes across the chin. I don't know that it was under the neck. It could have been a crank. Potentially it was under the neck. I mean, only Davies would know. We didn't really have a great angle, but either way, starts applying the squeeze and draws the submission. First round submission win for Davies. Not the first time we've seen him do it, not the second, not the third, not the fourth. I mean, Davies has a reputation for being an absolute serpent on the ground, and it's yet another win for him. 6-0, all finishes. And we're talking about I'd struggle to name five fighters that excite me more than Luke Riley. I'd struggle to name you one or two like up and coming guys that I'm more excited about in the UK right now than Davies. Just a tremendous talent. And for all of the great grappling prowess that this guy shows, he's also a really good striker. Doesn't get to show it often because you know, he butters his bread on the ground, and that's amazing. But I mean, you only have to look at the people he's beaten. Like Adam Shelley's a fantastic win. Leon Hill, I mean, that's a tremendous win. He's on a run, and this run only stops when he gets to that title because I think that in the next 12 months, I can easily see Davies fighting for the belt. Perhaps in Wales, they could do something. They could do something really cool in Wales. It's been a while since we had a card in Wales. Well, we had one earlier in the year, right? But um, or did we, or was that last year? God, I don't know. Anyways, it's not been too long since we had a card in Wales, but it'd be awesome to see Davies headlining that maybe potentially as one half of a title fight. Look, it's 155 pounds that Davies fights at. We know that that belt could be vacant in the future. So yeah, I think he's just going to keep rattling off these wins until he gets to gold. And I really hope he does because, like I said, this guy's a super exciting prospect, and I'm very hyped to see what they do with him next. Speaking of hyped prospects, we had Jack Humphreys versus Fabian Ufs. Humphreys, you guys will already know, one of my favorite prospects in the UK before he turned pro as an amateur, fighting in IMAF and smashing people on the ground as an amateur. Turned pro earlier this year in Cage Warriors, won via first round submission. And here, Humphreys manages to get it done again. For all intents and purposes, Fabian Ufs is a very decent prospect in his own right. Did some little bit of tape study coming into this fight, and Ufs is legit. Humphreys, within 2 minutes, basically had him dead to rights. I really like the elbows on top from Humphreys. Like he, immediately, Ufs was the one who shot on the takedown initially. Humphreys using the dash choke to kind of not really to get the choke, but to I guess dissuade Ufs from being able to initiate the takedown or to complete the takedown. But what happened then was that they kind of toppled over. Humphreys really attacked that Das. Seemed like he almost had it, but I think awesome defense from Fabian Ufs because he locked up one of the legs with his own legs uh, to stop Humphreys from sprawling, to getting his chest down and his hips down and being able to really put some torque on the submission. So yeah, good defense from Ufs. But once Humphreys had him there on the ground, cracking elbows over the top, pounding away at Ufs. Just Ufs wasn't defending smartly in any way. Referee, of course, forced to step in. Humphreys, to see him win his first two pro fights comes as no surprise to me. Back to back first round finishes. Just an incredible year so far for the Ripper. Perhaps he gets another one in before the end of the year. Who knows? But very excited about Humphreys' future. I think he comes out of a really good gym. He's got an incredible work ethic, a fantastic fighter in his own right as well. He's great on the ground. He's confident. I could see him really in the next probably 2 years. I could see him really making a big run, not only in Cage Warriors but in MMA as well. You guys know I've been hyped for this guy for years, and I've been talking about it on the pod for a while. So, like I said, to see him debut this year with two professional wins, it's no surprise to me. I think there's only more to come from Humphreys. Dean Truman versus Gavin Hughes was a fucking banger. After 2 years away, former featherweight champion Dean Truman returned to the yellow gloves, riding a four-fight losing streak, yes, but the people he's lost to, an undefeated Giuseppe Reggeri, Mads Burnell, Morgan Charrier, George Hardwick. Come on, give the man some props. And what I loved about this fight was, Hughes also riding a pretty long skid of losses, three in a row for him, but he had been more active recently, had a really close bout with Bungard last year in his Cage Warriors debut. So I think this was perfectly matched, which comes as no surprise because Ian Dean's a wizard when it comes to the matchmaking. I love this. A gritty scrap between two UK MMA veterans, and yeah, it was awesome for as long as it lasted. In first round, Hughes started well early, attacking the calf, landing a left hook early doors, and I even wrote that looks like Hughes has the speed advantage and the time in here. It could get ugly for Truman. And as I was typing that in my notes, Truman took Hughes down and really started to batter Hughes on the ground. Heavy elbows, punches. Hughes was bleeding profusely. And as Truman is flurrying and landing a bunch of strikes, he throws this illegal kick to the head of Gavin Hughes while Hughes was grounded, and that got Truman a point deduction. And I think that even after they came back within that round, Truman was still putting it on Gavin Hughes. But I wrote this in my notes, and I'm happy I did, and it looks really cool now because I was like, most fighters would be done right now. In fact, I'll read it to you what I wrote. I said most fighters would be done right now, but Gavin Hughes is not that guy. He'll make a comeback. I literally wrote that in my notes, and I scored that round 9-9. I didn't think Hughes won, even with the point deduction. I thought that it was only fair that it's a 9-9. In round two, what does Gavin Hughes do? He rallies back, catches Truman with a flurry of shots. Truman, reactive takedown attempt, and Gavin Hughes jumps the gilly, snatches up the neck, and draws the submission. Just an unreal comeback, an unreal finish. Was it shocking to me knowing the kind of fighter that Gavin Hughes is? No, because I know the guy's he's cut from a cloth that few folks are. It's so good to see Gavin Hughes get his hand raised. It's been since 2019, and obviously COVID didn't help, and there's a massive gap in there. But since 2019, Gavin Hughes hasn't had his hand raised. I can only imagine how amazing that felt to go through the fire, to potentially be on the cusp of getting finished. Like it seemed like it was heading that way before the illegal kick from Truman. Amazing submission. One that's going to go down as one of my favorite submissions of the year, just because of the state of the fight, like leading into it, and then the fact that he just jumped the guillotine and got the finish. Amazing stuff from Gavin Hughes. Just I'm so happy to see that guy win. For Dean Truman, looked like he was retiring, put his gloves down on the canvas, and I tweeted about it. If it is the end for Dean Truman, former featherweight champ, had some awesome scraps in Cage Warriors, just an absolute UK MMA vet. Ian Dean tweeted me during the fights and was like, he's 100% not done. So I, I think we will see Dean Truman again, and I'm all for it. Yes, he's 10-9. Yes, he's potentially getting on a bit in his career, but he looked really good against Gavin Hughes, and Hughes would probably tell you himself, like Truman was giving him a really good fight. So yeah, I'm happy to see Dean Truman in there again. Hopefully, another UK MMA vet that they match him up with. Who says no to potentially Dean Truman versus Chris Bungard? How cool would that be if they could get that one over the line? I think that would be awesome. Bungard on a bit of a losing skid as well. I think it would make sense. Two veterans in the scene. I would love to see that. I think that's a great fight. I'm going to give myself a little tap on the back for that. So we'll move on swiftly. George McManus versus Dara Ward, and this was this one really fucked me off. It was, by the way, a great fight between McManus and Dara Ward. McManus 3-4 coming into this. His losses are to Shaban, Oban Elliott, Ian Gary. No shame there. Dara Ward 2-0 as a pro, 6-1 AMI career. Really exciting grappler out of Ireland. Made his Cage Warriors debut in April and won via first round submission over Ben Petches Kelly, which is a win that will age really well for him. I loved this fight. I hated all the drama around it, and we will talk about that because I've got a lot to say about it, and I'm going to try to keep it nice and tight. But look, amazing fight, ridiculous grappling pace. You guys know me, I love my grappling, and these are the kind of fights that I love in MMA, and it's why I love MMA. It's what got me into MMA. Is we all like to see the biting down on the mouthpiece and beating each other up, but I also love the grappling aspect. I love grappling in MMA because you'll always have the danger of getting punched in the face while you're trying to grapple, and it just makes grappling, it makes that chess match a lot more intense. Uh, but anyways, this was incredible. McManus and Dara Ward just scrambling the entire first round, scrambles. Both guys attacking the neck, attacking the guillotines, rolling through it. McManus attacking like a straight heel hook at one point. Ward getting up and raining down some punches. A really close first round. I scored it to McManus, who landed some good shots early, and then had like three submission attempts. Could potentially see Dara Ward getting that round because he did land some damage towards the end, but I thought McManus had won that first round. And this is now coming into the second round is where we get into the territory of controversy. So McManus clocks Dara Ward with a lovely straight left hand early in the round. Ward then returns fire, left hook cuts McManus open, leaking profusely, and then there's a follow up standing elbow from Dara Ward. McManus looks laboured, goes for a single leg takedown. Ward stuffs it, beats him up from half guard. Ward was starting to take over in this fight, like starting to look really good, attacking the arm triangle, tried to apply that shoulder pressure, but McManus, answering the phone and defending really well. And then we had drama, belly down armbar from McManus, draws the tap from Ward, who taps 8 times. You go watch the replay. I thought it was 3. Someone tweeted me saying it was 8. I looked back at it. Dara Ward taps 8 times. It's missed by referee Rich Mitchell, which, you know, could he have been a bit more cognizant of what was going on? Yes, but also the angle. It's a belly down armbar. It's always hard to see, which side is the fighter tapping on. So I don't want to rag on Rich too much, but Rich misses it, and the round ends with Dara Ward really raining down punches on McManus. Had it 19-19, but then after a referee review in between rounds, you could hear Mark Goddard saying on the broadcast, he tapped. It's clear as day. It's clear as day that he's tapped. 100% he's tapped, and they make the decision in between rounds to stop the fight and grant McManus a submission win. Gorgeous armbar, like a really good armbar, and I don't want the controversy and the shit that I'm going to talk about now. I don't want that to take away from McManus's performance. He was awesome on the ground, incredibly opportunistic, great submission, fantastic armbar, and a fair win for McManus. And that's what I want to talk about. An absolutely fair win. Deals Dara Ward his first career loss as a pro, improves to 4-4. So why is this controversial? People saying after the fight that, well, the referee missed it. It should have been a no contest. That they shouldn't be able to stop it in between rounds. Dara Ward was starting to take over. I don't buy it. Like I'm gonna be real. Like anyone spouting that opinion hasn't competed a day in their lives in any combat sport, right? You cannot you cannot genuinely tell me that a man taps twice or taps 8 times, right? A man taps 8 times on a belly down armbar and it should be a no contest. Why? Okay, the referee missed it, the ebb and flow of the fight changed. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Like when you tap in jiu-jitsu, in MMA, okay, cool, the referee misses it, whatever. But you're effectively, when you tap, you're saying, I'm done. You got me. Here you go, there's your W. And that's what it should have been. But we've got now this weird rhetoric about, oh, it should have been a no contest. This it's just bollocks, right? And I don't want to come across as I'm beefing anyone or that I disagree with more popular people on the internet, right? Because who the fuck am I? But seeing the big MMA accounts, I'm not going to name people because these are people I genuinely respect and I rate the shit out of and I love the content that they produce. But clamoring for the no contest, it's a bit of homerism, if you ask me. Like, we get it, like Dara Ward's Irish, and you know some of the Irish MMA folks aren't happy about what happened. But lads, if it was the other way round, you're not clamoring for a no contest. Like, let's be real, you're definitely not clamoring for a no contest. And yeah, it's stupid that this is the fucking conversation, right? McManus, spoils the apple cart, upsets the apple cart, however you wanna put it, gets a great submission win as an underdog, and that's what it should be. Your man tapped 8 times, and then Dara Ward at the end of the fight. Like I'll stop ragging on about this because there's a great fight I want to talk about next between Shea Ingram and Mark Ngannou. But yeah, Dara Ward at the end protesting, not protesting, but like in front of the camera saying no, like it wasn't a finish, flexing in front of the camera, trying to stand in front of McManus as though he'd won the fight. It's just embarrassing, mate, to be honest. You come from a fantastic gym with a great coach, a great head coach. You're young. You've just you got on your first career loss. You've got a long career ahead of you. That sour grapes is so strange to me. Like there's video footage of you tapping 8 times. This isn't an early stoppage. This isn't, oh, I was in it. You tapped 8 times from a belly down armbar. You lost. And you admitted defeat by tapping. That's the whole point of tapping, right? If the armbar wasn't in, then get your arm snapped, right? But you tapped 8 times and then to almost save face. I just found it a bit embarrassing. Like I guess Dara's young and I don't want to rag on him. I've praised this man enough on this podcast, but I thought it was a really shitty thing, and I hope that mentality improves. And perhaps he was just a little bit hurt about getting his first career loss. But to me, yeah, just I didn't rate that from him. We'll move on swiftly because I'm starting to get annoyed, and there's still so many fights to talk about. Main card opener was between Shea Ingram and Mark Ngannou. My word, what a fight between these two men. Ingram's pro debut, Ngachou's pro debut as well. Ngannou 18-4-1 as an amateur, wealth of IMAF experience to boot. Cage Warriors Academy champion as well as an amateur. and Shea Ingram 9-0. If you know about the UK amateur scene, you know Shea's one of the biggest names, and to see him turn pro and see Ngannou turn pro against each other, ruthless matchmaking from Ian Dean, but it gave us one of, probably the most compelling fight of both nights, both 177 and 178. Ingram and Ngannou delivered big time. First round, I scored to Ingram. I thought he was awesome. He was landing anything he wanted to land. Ngannou looked skittish and looked a bit labored in the first round. He was throwing his strikes with zero defense. Like, we've never seen him look like that before. And Ingram was just, yeah, crushing him in the first round. And I thought, after that first round, I thought Ngachou's chin is on a platter for Ingram to clean him out. It was a dangerous approach from Ngannou, and Ingram was clocking him. Scored that round to Ingram. Round two, Ngannou really started to do the pressing, committing when he was throwing, um, trading jabs with Ingram, and started to. I think the second half of the round, Ngannou really took over, found his bag, found his rhythm. Uh, you know, Ingram was throwing these labored shots, going for these tired takedowns, going for these labored takedowns even, and Ngannou was just punishing each takedown attempt with elbows and punches to the side of the head. Nice combination late from Ngannou against the fence. Had it 19-19 going into round two. And here's where I'd love to hear people's opinions, right? Because round three, the first minute and a half or so was all Ngannou, jabbing and punching in combination, cutting Ingram above the eye. The jab was just fantastic. I even tweeted that the jab is winning Ngannou the fight right now, crushing body kick as well. But then Ingram rallied back, landed a big punch, and then wrestled for the rest of the round. Got a huge slam takedown at the end, some strikes in there as well, and the round was scored for Ingram across all three judges' scorecards. I thought it was a very close third round, like super close. And these types of rounds always tend to go to the guy who ended the round stronger, right? Like Ngannou does really good work, but it's buried within the first minute or the first 90 seconds of the round. Whereas the last 3.5 minutes is Ingram controlling, perhaps not landing a great deal, but then puts a bow on it in the last 30 seconds with that slam takedown, with the strikes on the ground, and steals the round, which is fair. Um, I personally scored it 29-28 for Ngannou, who I thought landed the better strikes early in the round. Ingram had way more control and probably, like I said, swayed the scorecards based on his late work. No issues with me that Ingram won this fight. Ingram wins 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27, which I don't know that he won round two, but yeah, remember the name Shea Ingram and remember the name Mark Ngannou because both of these guys are going to have amazing careers. Ngachou's 23, I believe, with what is it, 23 amateur fights as well. Mental. And Shea's 21. That win is going to age beautifully. Like when we look at Shane Ingram's record 3-4 years from now, we're gonna be like, fuck, like him and Ngannou really fought each other in their first pro fights. Ingram looked amazing, like his well-roundedness, his jab in round one especially. I loved his work in rounds one and round three were amazing. Round two for me was a clear Ngannou round, but round three, Ingram's just so comfortable standing, so comfortable grappling for me one of the best fights on well no sorry the best fight I think between both cards in my opinion, just an absolutely amazing back and forth technical battle. And yeah, Shea Ingram's he's gonna be the real deal. 1-0 as a pro now, amazing amateur career. That's 10-0 with both amateur and pros combined. Yeah, Shea's gonna do great things in MMA, and I can't wait to see how the rest of his career unfolds. We will rattle through the prelims now. We still have the entire unplugged card to discuss, and I'm conscious that we're 30 minutes in already. So we're going to go through this now. Joe Fields scoring the first round Darce choke finish. An amazing win for Joe Fields. Super exciting prospect out of MFA, where, of course, the Hardwick brothers train. A super exciting and fast rising gym. 3-0 now for Joe Fields, who just looks so comfortable on the ground, looks so comfortable on the feet as well. Like I loved early doors, the roundhouse to the body, the stance switching, the calf kicks. Just an amazing performance from Joe Fields. gets his hand raised 3-0. Probably we see him again this year, potentially, if he gets another one in. That card in Newcastle potentially sounds fun. Harry Hardwick gonna be gonna be headlining that card, defending his belt. So yeah, it would be cool maybe to have some more MFA representation on that card. Maybe we see Joe Fields in there again, but an awesome performance from him. We had Nick Bukema versus Cameron Chamberlain. Bukema 2-0 was supposed to fight Bagley back in May, but the fight was cancelled. Finally makes his debut here, and what a debut it was. I forgot to mention Joe Fields choked Costin Buna unconscious in the previous fight, and Nick Bukema here choked Cameron Chamberlain unconscious too. This time, Chamberlain attacks. This time, Bukema attacks the back, threatens on the near side arm to get the Kimura, but then uses that to transition to the back, get his rear naked choke in. Cameron Chamberlain goes to sleep almost immediately. Like some of the squeezes we saw on this card, like the fact that he put him to sleep so quickly. Cameron Chamberlain was out like a light. It was tremendous grappling from Nick Bukema, who improves to 3-0 now and seems to have some really good grappling chops about him. Orlando Wilson Prince in the corner as well. You love to see it. Great fighter. And yeah, 3-0 now. So let's see how they match him up next. Gregory Wamitan versus Sheldon Ryan. Wamitan an underdog coming into this 2-3 record, but a grappling savvy guy, kill or be killed on the ground. We've only seen him once in Cage Warriors. He was subbed by Joe Harris, but he looked great in that fight. Sheldon Ryan also made his second Cage Warriors appearance here, had the split decision loss to Lupoli back in March. And yeah, Wamitan just too good for Sheldon Ryan on the ground. Ryan swung for a hook. Wamitan dived on the double leg, lifted him up, slammed him on the ground, immediately attacked the neck, and drew the submission from the Darce choke, putting Sheldon Ryan out to sleep as well. He was even telling the ref, he was like, yeah, he's out. Like, this guy has gone to sleep. So, yeah, referee missed it for a few seconds. So, Ryan got some quality sleeping time in there for a bit. But yeah, really good performance from Gregory Wamitan, like genuinely very impressive. I'd love to see him in there again. Maybe you match him up with Jordan Molinari, who also won on this card. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Big shout out to Harry Shaw, who fought Steph Murray. Shaw 1-1, making his Cage Warriors debut. Hadn't fought in a year, and my word, did he look amazing here. Someone to keep an eye on. And if you're going to take anything away from this pod, uh, take away the fact that I think Harry Shaw's going to be a problem. Improves to 2-1, 30-27, just a dominant, patient, striking masterclass from him. Didn't overextend on anything, didn't throw too many reckless combinations. He just beat the hell out of Murray for 15 minutes with singular strikes. Through the odd combination here and there, but just great shot selection. Murray was just frozen for 15 minutes, really. Murray's tough as hell. A lot of fighters would have been knocked out in that fight, or would have found a way out. But Shaw just put it on him, was composed, and yeah, I really enjoyed his performance. 2-1 now for Harry Shaw. Very, very excited to see where his career takes him next. And then we had as the opening fight on the card, Jordan Molinari versus Matthew Friel. Molinari 0-1 as a pro, but 17 fight amateur career. Friel 1-1 as a pro, 20 fight amateur career. So 37 amateur fights between them. Both guys with a lot of IMAF experience. Well, I think Molinari with a lot of IMAF and EMO experience as well. And yeah, this was a really, really close fight. I scored it 29-28 for Jordan Molinari. I thought his grappling pace, his scrambles, I think he was a bit too much for Friel to deal with. I could see 29-28 Friel, don't get me wrong. And it was a split decision, I think, on the night for Molinari. Let me just check. Tapology says unanimous, but Tapology always says unanimous for Cage Warriors fights, so I don't believe it. I believe it was splitty. But if it wasn't, anyways, the right decision was made. I scored it 29-28 for Molinari. Really close fight with a really fun grappling pace. I just don't think Friel was able to keep up with Molinari when they were on the ground. So, yeah, Molinari now finally gets his first pro win. 1-1 now. Excited to see how they match him up next. Would love to see him against Wamitan. That's the fight I mentioned a few minutes ago. I think that would be really, really cool. I think it makes sense. Two guys who have just about started their pro careers, two guys who are dangerous on the ground as well. Let's put that one together. I think it's a no-brainer. We will now move on to the unplugged section of this double header from Cage Warriors. Cage Warriors 177, which took place on Friday, so the day before 178. Who'd have thought? We'll just go through it. It was a ridiculous card with so many first round finishes, so it won't take us a great deal to talk about. But we'll start with the main event, which was between Florin Pertea versus Chasen Blair. Chasen Blair returns to the UK once more, which I love to see. One of the most exciting guys on the roster from the San Diego scene. 5-2 as a pro, all wins via finish. And who'd have thought? Another finish win for Chasen Blair in round one against Pertea, who this is his first fight since December 2022 when he lost to Christian Iorga, who we just saw compete for the title against George Hardwick. 8-2 with a lot of regional experience, and Chasen Blair put him out to pasture. Pertea looked good early, attacking the calf early, clipped him with a glancing head kick as well. But within a minute or so, Blair started to find the timing on Pertea's kicks, punishing him whenever he was lifting his leg. Pertea tried the takedown attempt, and Blair just made him look like a child on the ground, man. Like passed straight into side control. Then went into mount. Pertea tried to escape the mount, rotated straight into Blair's triangle and got subbed. Blair 6-2 now, 3 first round finishes. Pertea's a good opponent as well, and Chasen Blair made him look like an amateur, made him look like they didn't even belong in the same cage. Chasen Blair's fun. He's fun on the feet. He hits with a lot of power. His grappling is amazing. He's got obviously that D1, I believe, wrestling background. So a really well-rounded fighter, and I love seeing the US guys fighting in the UK as well. The co-main event was between Percy Herrera and Oli Sawa. Herrera making his Cage Warriors debut, Italian vet, 9-8 records, 17 fights in total. For someone like Sawa, who's just about started his career as a pro, I think that's a pretty sizable jump from an experience perspective. But Sawa did not look like it was, because Sawa looked just unbelievable. A little bit of background on Sawa, because it is his Cage Warriors debut as a pro, but he is finally making his Cage Warriors debut here. Bantamweight and featherweight champion in the academy scene. 4-0 as a pro, 10-4 as an amateur. All first round finishes as a pro. Make that 5-0 now. Another first round finish for Oli Sawa in less than a minute. 55 seconds is all it took for Oli. Attacking the legs early. Had a nice check off the calf kick as well. Herrera just immediately was entering recklessly, chin in the air, pulling his head back. And when you do that against a guy like Oli Sawa, what happens? You get dropped as you're pulling your head back with a crisp right hand. Follow-up shots were huge from Sawa, and gets the 55-second KO in his Cage Warriors debut. 5-0, another really fun bantamweight for Cage Warriors, another killer on that 135 roster. I'm sure, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him again this year. I think he'll be itching to get back in there more than likely. No injuries, quick fight. Yeah, let's see what they do with Oli Sawa. Marine Vitrilla and Adam Shelley was one of the fights I was most hyped for between both cards, really, because been really high on Vitrilla. Yes, we saw him lose in his first Cage Wars appearance almost 2 years ago against El Hadj and Dai. Not almost 2 years, I think it was 18 months. Stacked up 2 wins since then outside of the promotion, 4-1. Ryan Shelley coming off a loss to Davies back in July, 5-3. Really fun Taekwondo guy, awkward, gangly, tall guy. And my word, Marin Vitrilla put the fucking boots to Adam Shelley. Amazing performance from Vitrilla. Roundhouse to the body multiple times, putting a stonking pace on Shelley, who really had nothing off the back foot. Which, for a Taekwondo guy, they sometimes enjoy a bit of pressure and then they counter. But Vitrilla just swarmed him. Great footwork, throwing shots off rhythm as well, which I tweeted about. He wasn't conventional in his striking, as in he was fundamentally sound. I'm not saying it was like a Fleming-ass situation where he's just throwing awkward shots, but it was almost the pace and rhythm at which he was throwing. Like he was throwing offbeat, almost when you'd expect him not to be. And I think that's what was really freezing Shelley up. Vetrillo eventually smashes him with a huge right hand as Shelley just circled into it. A real one-hitter quitter. Vetrillo improves to 5-1, rights the wrong of his Cage Warriors debut 18 months ago. A very exciting fighter for me, and I look forward to seeing what they do with him next. We'll swiftly move on to probably the biggest underdog win of the year in Cage Warriors between Elise Smith and Riri Hudson. Spoken about Riri enough times, both as an amateur and a pro. She made her pro debut back in July, scored a 13-second knockout, undefeated as an amateur and a pro. Deadly Muay Thai artist, quite light for strawweight, always comes in under 155 pounds, but packs a mean punch. Elise Smith making her Cage Warriors debut, riding a 2-fight win streak, 2-2 as a pro, and training out of the UK despite being an Aussie. So similar to Joyner as well. This is just a great find from Ian Dean. I got to sometimes you got to take your hat off, right? I thought, okay, this person's 2-2. Riri's an up and coming prospect. Let's see Riri beat her up, and it didn't happen. Both of them, to be fair, trading in the pocket, a real back and forth shootout on the feet between these two ladies. Elise Smith, I gave her the first round, just landing the better shots, cleaner, more impactful. In the second round, we see Smith with a bit of a bump under her eye as both girls were just trading shots. Riri then got busted right open, a real awesome fight, and then Smith in round two catches Riri with a crushing left hook. Follow up shots, Riri just turtles up against the fence, and it's a good stoppage from the referee. A huge underdog win from Smith, someone that we should all keep our eyes on right now. She came into this fight as an underdog, and Riri, I think the world of Riri. So to see her lose, um, yeah, you got to think Smith is probably someone that we need to keep an eye on at 115 pounds. Improves to 3-2 now. Yeah, that was just an awesome fight. If you want to go back and watch it, I really recommend it. An awesome just slugfest between both of them, and Smith just getting the better of Hudson with that cracking left hook. Amazing win for her. Anthony Orozco versus Thiago Habib took place as well on this card, on the main card, and Orozco improves to 4-0 to the surprise of no one. One of my favorite prospects in MMA. Forget Cage Warriors, just MMA in general. Even as an amateur, Orozco was already someone I really enjoyed watching. To see him turn pro, to see him rattle off all these wins, comes as no surprise to me. I loved the work early from Orozco, the turning side kick, the stance switching, the side kick again, the knee to the body, entering in on the takedown. Orozco's really got these creative and powerful ways to make you feel like he's going to sit there and stand with you, and then before you know it, your back's against the fence, and he just takes you down as easy as you like. It's just amazing from Orozco. Goes right into side control off the takedown, attacks the armbar, tries to go belly down with it. Habib scrambles out, tries to kick Orozco away, regains half guard, which was pretty cool. But Orozco cracking him with elbows in half guard. Used the armbar almost as a threat in order to get to the mount, and then takes the back as Habib just kind of turns into him. And then, yeah, love the work from Orozco, trapping the far side arm, trapping the arm almost under Habib, and then just elbowing away at his skull, pounding away at him, getting the early first round finish. Orozco's a demon on the ground, man. He's so good, and he's creative, but also it's grappling with the intent to hurt you. It's not grappling for the sake of grappling. It's very much, I'm going to get you in a position where I can punch your skull really hard, and it's these entries from half guard that are really good. But it's also the trapping of the arm, threatening a submission just to get to a more advantageous position, right? Like threatening that armbar just to get into mount, um, and then knowing that by going into mount, Habib's going to panic, give his back up, and yeah, I just thought it was awesome work from Orozco. 4-0 now. You guys know I think the world of this guy. I think he's a future UFC fighter without a doubt. But also forget that. I just think he's going to win a lot of gold in his career in general. A really exciting guy at 170 pounds. The main card headliner for Cage Warriors 177 was between Joanne Aristey and Joe Middleton. Aristey returning to Cage Warriors after a win outside of the promotion back in May. 0-2 in Cage Warriors. His most recent loss, though, was him posting on a takedown and getting his arm broken. So it's been a while. And his other, and that was to Francesco Mazzeo, who's going to be on the Contender Series this Tuesday. So keep an eye on that one. His other loss to Dario Belandi, who's the current champion. So two high level guys. Also has a win over Omran Shaban back in 2021. Middleton, on the other hand, finally making his Cage Warriors debut. Two cancelled fights in 2024. Last fight took place 18 months ago. 1-0 as a pro. I spoke a lot about Aristide just then, but it was really all Joe Middleton. Another first round finish, a beautiful Darce choke. Joe Middleton improves to 2-0. Both pro wins via Darce choke, which is insane. Aristide trying to wrestle up with the underhook. When you do that, Middleton effectively had to oblige and used Aristide's momentum against him while he was scrambling to attack the Darce choke and draw the submission. And Middleton there improves to 2-0. Someone to keep an eye on at 185 pounds, no doubt. Speaking of 185 pounds, prelim headliner Angus Hewitt versus Michael Chamu, the people's main event, the absolute slobber knocker banger of the night, guaranteed. Everyone was excited for this one. It went about as we expected. I thought it'd be a lot closer. I tweeted, I think both guys are going to knock each other down multiple times, then someone will get the finish. But really, it was all Michael Chamu. Hewitt getting wobbled multiple times. Chamu just beating his head like a bongo drum. Hewitt shooting on a double leg. Chamu just pinging him every time he came in. Right hand over the top eventually from Chamu, rocked Hewitt, followed him down to the ground and just pounded his head into the canvas. Chamu now has a winning record, guys, improves to 5-4. Really happy for him. He's faced some adversity early in his MMA career, also doing his kickboxing as well. But his losses, he's fought some tough guys, Samir Kaddi, Will Curry, Naglius Kanisauskas. But now it's 2 wins in a row for him. Wins over Joe Ambler earlier in the year and Angus Hewitt, 2 first-round finishes. Hewitt drops to 1-4, but this guy's so much fun. Guaranteed, whenever he's in a fight, it's going to be a banger. This one didn't disappoint. He had a few flashes, like a few moments where it looked like it might go his way, but Chamu was just too much. Chamu's power, Chamu's willingness to just throw in close proximity with reckless abandon was just too much for Angus Hewitt. Michael Chamu, 5-4 now. It's just great to see. Nel Ariano versus Farshad Nazania. I'm not going to spend too long talking about this. I don't want to waste anyone's time. I scored it 29-28. Ariano. It was a split decision win for him in the end. A really awful fight, in all honesty. Both guys just clinching against the fence, not doing a great deal. I gave Ariano the first and third round. Could I see the fight going to Nazania? Sure. I don't really care enough to discuss the intricacies of the fight too much. Ariano improves now to 2-0. He won earlier in the year in his first fight as well. So in Cage Warriors. So 2-0 now as a pro, also 2-0 in the promotion. But yeah, fight that, in all honesty, yeah, it's not even worth going into too much. And then the prelim opener, so the first fight on the card and the last fight we'll talk about, was between Conor Patterson and Jan Masek. Really enjoyed this fight. Loved Conor Patterson's performance. In the first round, I scored it very clear 10-9 to Conor Patterson. Jan Masek was really just getting dominated on the ground. Second round, Patterson again dominating early, but Masek drops him late with an uppercut, swarms him with a bunch of punches, dropped him again, started pounding away at his head with 30 seconds to work, attacked a guillotine as well. But yeah, it was a huge momentum swinger in round 2, in a round that Patterson was probably on the cusp of winning. It swung it right back in Jan Masek's favor. By the way, guys, this was Conor Patterson's pro debut as a 9-1 amateur. Conor Patterson came into this fight with a lot of hype surrounding him, so to see him get dropped multiple times, it started to look a bit ropey for him. But there's a reason why he's a really hyped prospect, because late in round 3, after seeing Conor Patterson get dropped multiple times in round 2, after seeing Masek slamming him with a knee early as he entered on a takedown, it looked like perhaps Patterson was going to fold. Patterson leans on the wrestling, makes Masek look like a fish out of water on the ground, started to dominate the rest of the third round, and then with, God, I don't know, probably like a minute and a half left of the round. Patterson attacks the head and arm choke and puts Masek out to sleep. An amazing comeback win. What a way to win your first fight, right? Like that, for that to be your pro debut, you went through everything. You displayed, your great grappling prowess. You displayed insane toughness, insane heart, a great chin, and then you also came back and you displayed that you can finish a fight. You can finish a fight late. You've got the gas tank. We learned so much about Conor Patterson in just 13 and a half minutes of fighting. 1-0 as a pro now, 9-1 as an amateur. Just great to see. And Conor Patterson's a guy that people should keep an eye on at 145 pounds. The Paradox, great nickname, 24 years of age. I think he's going to do really good things in his career. All right, so that wraps up Cage Warriors 177 Unplugged and Cage Warriors 178. 20 fights, 16 finishes, 8 submissions, 7 knockouts. Just two really fun cards. We lost a couple of title fights. We were supposed to have James Sheehan versus Yanis Bakar on 77, and we were supposed to have on 78 Andy Clamp versus James Webb. The fact that we lost both title fights, still had incredible fights nonetheless. Great prospect wins, huge underdog wins, amazing finishes. Dudes getting put out to sleep just all night long on 78, and then in 77, dudes just getting concussed and knocked the fuck out. An extremely violent, batch of fights, and two really fun back-to-back cards as well in Manchester. Manchester never disappoints. Yeah, I had a ball. I had a great fucking time with both cards. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed listening to the podcast, please consider liking wherever you're listening to this on. You can leave a review. If you're listening this long, like, please, I do encourage you to leave a review. It takes 2 seconds, even if it's just a star rating. If you're on Apple, you can also write a review. Spotify, you can give a star rating. We get a lot of listeners, but we've only ever had one review on Apple, and we've only ever had 3 ratings on Spotify, which, all of the ratings so far have been 5 stars, which is awesome. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can like, you can comment, you can subscribe as well. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you guys again in November, where we're going to have 3 fucking stacked cards. We got Rome, we got London, and then we've got Newcastle. My most hyped fight of the year, Liam getting Shirzad Kadrian in London. Boy, I can't wait for that card, and I can't wait for November. So catch you guys then. Peace.